Alright, what's up everybody? Today we're doing this sound. Or maybe something like this sound. Okay, so you know the drill. Before we get into this, please go ahead and follow me, subscribe, do all that. I love it when you guys do that. Okay, so real quick, I don't want this to be a copy my sound tutorial. Instead, I'm going to highlight 3 sections on this synth that I use way more than all the others when trying to create cool basses or sounds. These are going to be the first phaser, second the Prism, and third the Harmonizer. We're going to go ahead and get started with the phaser. We're going to go ahead and add a new Harmor here. And like I said, first we're going to go ahead and talk about the phaser. So a phaser is something that we're probably pretty used to, but this one is a little bit different. We can switch the mode here, and this kind of controls on how the phaser is distributed through the frequency spectrum and through the harmonics. Other than that, once we've switched it to harmonic mode, which I just think it sounds better, it's supposed to simulate sync or wave FM. I'm not exactly sure how it does that, but again, we'll just put it there. We can adjust now randomly the mix, the width, the offset, and the speed. Real quick to explain these, the mix is how much of the phaser we're hearing. The width is how wide the phaser bands are and how many there are, controlled by that. The offset is where it starts in our spectrum, and the speed is how fast we hear it happening. So let's make sure that we're defaulted here, and we can give a listen to how that sounds. Okay, and then we can also play around with these shapes and get other different interesting effects. And I'm hoping you can hear how this can be used to make cool sounds. Alright, next we're going to go ahead and talk about the Prism. So the Prism, what this effect does is it spreads harmonics and moves them around in the spectrum. It can give us weird dissonant effects, and I think its qualities add a really interesting effect to our computery sound. So let's add a little bit of that. And you want to play around with the modes, and you can figure out by looking up here kind of how it's doing it. So again, just play around with this until you find something that you think is cool. So that's the Prism. One thing to be careful with the Prism too is it may destroy some of the low end of your sound. So one thing you can do to kind of fix that is you can add a little bit of unison, and you can go down here to your Prism amount. And if we go in this envelope, or not envelope, this drop down and go to unison index mapping, we can actually see our voices appearing here. So what we can do is we can just keep one voice that doesn't really have the Prism very much, and then kind of work it back into the rest of our sound, and this will keep one voice clean and pure of Prism, so that way it stays kind of more stable in the low end. Alright, lastly, the thing we're going to look at here is the Harmonizer. Now, I will be honest with you guys, I understand this one the least, so I kind of take this with a grain of salt, but the idea behind the Harmonizer is to add harmonics at certain intervals to your sound. I will be honest again, I don't really know how this number system works, so I need to take a little bit of time personally to understand how that is, but the idea is the amount is how much of the effect is added, the width, again, not really sure, and the strength is how strong these harmonics are. And it operates in the same way with this unison index mapping. Alright, so now that we've covered our main 3 little things that I want to play with in here, basically to get a cool sound, I pretty much just play around with these parameters until I have something I like. I can either apply envelopes or LFOs to these parameters, or I could always, do an automation clip, which is what I prefer because you have more control, and this will really help you create a unique sound with a lot of motion and character to play with. So let's go ahead and just do that real quick here. We won't take too long to do it. We'll just figure this out. Make sure these other ones are off. Okay, so now we'll go back into this Harmor here. Just bear with me here. Going to do this as quickly as possible. And this automation is all pretty random. So you know what, let's not even focus on it too much, and we'll just focus on getting the sound done. There's got to be a faster way to do this. As you can see, I'm not a native FL user, so I'm not incredible with this yet. Okay, so a couple other things we can add could be, like I said, unison, like I mentioned earlier, or some basic filter motion. So I think that always sounds really cool, and you can hear that in my beginning examples. We can also add some pitch if we're just making an FX or a, you know, kind of sound that doesn't need to be tuned. So again, you definitely hear that in this original example up here. So we can kind of turn off the filter frequency and the pitch, and you'll hear what I'm talking about. So still a bunch of computery noise, and you can kind of hear the underlying three things that we talked about a little bit better there. Okay, so some typical post-processing. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. Dry, this sounds like this. And then if we go ahead and add our effects, and these are the same ones that you heard on my examples earlier. You hear that sounds a little bit nicer. So what I did is I added a little bit of wave shaping to just go ahead and warm up the low end a little bit and add a little bit more sparkle to our highs. I also added a little bit of Maximus where I boosted the lows, boosted the highs just a little bit, and then kind of compressed down the whole thing in the master. And then just in case, although this probably isn't necessary, I added a fruity clipper to just go ahead and make sure everything is safe in the end. Yeah, so that's our Harmor sound. Again, to break it down for you, the main three things that we looked at here inside of Harmor were the phaser that we set to harmonic mode and played around with the parameters at random, the Prism that we kind of controlled with our unison index mapping here, and then the Harmonizer, which personally I admitted I don't know too much about, but it does do cool things. Yeah. I think this is really one of the best synths on the market, and I was able to get a really cool sound out of the box way quicker than anything I ever could with Ableton. So yeah, I definitely think it's something that everybody should give a try. I know a lot of FL producers who are intimidated just by the way this thing looks, because yeah, I'll agree it's not the best looking synth ever, but it does have some really cool capabilities, so it's worth giving it a try in my honest opinion. All right, I hope this tutorial helped everybody. I hope it was useful. Please let me know if it was. If it wasn't, if it was a hot piece of please let me know that too, because if I'm not making helpful content, that's not helpful for anybody. So I need to know that. Let me know. Anyways, please go ahead, give me your feedback. I'm open ears still. And like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff for me. I appreciate it. Have a great day, everybody. I know it's not bad to cut stuff at the end like this, but there is one more thing I want to mention. I know I shouldn't go on tangents like this, but if you want to add more warmth or more solidity to your bass, if it's going to be a tune bass, you can go in here to the part B and just kind of add, by low passing the sine that it comes with, a very low sub sort of layer. And I just wanted to add that because my examples had that, so you might be hearing the one we made and being like, hey, it doesn't sound as full and even. That could be why. So if we listen to those first two examples again. Right. Especially that one with the pitch. We hear the sub in there, so I wanted to put that in there for this one. All right, think of this as DLC content, bonus content. Thank you for sticking around and watching the end of it. You guys have an extra great day and enjoy Harmor.